syllabus, and I tried to finish it in this due course. We have got plenty of time. And as those who were late in the morning, before lunch, we agreed that next week we will not be teaching, we'll not be studying anything new, but we just have a revision session. Now, to make use of the revision session, you can be physically present in the classroom, or you can join by Zoom. I can give you one more option. Why do we have this pre-lunch revision session? Do we need 3 hours for the revision session next week? If we only have 2.5 hours in the post-lunch, so technically we don't meet at 11 o'clock, neither in the classroom nor in Zoom, but we meet at 1 o'clock till 3:30, through whether in the class or Zoom. What do you think? Any opinions? The last topic, of course, it's not something you have never heard of, right? We have done bits and shades of this topic many times. In fact, in the pre-lunch session, when we were discussing about the aggregate demand curve and aggregate supply curve, we were talking about this concept in a way. But let's do it more explicitly. Free market economy and the price mechanism. Free market economy is a system of economic liberalism, which come from very famous phrase, laissez-faire, which means no intervention, freedom, perfect freedom. Free market economy is a symbol of democracy. If democracy is a symbol of political freedom, free market is a symbol of economic freedom, where all the decisions are taken, they're not imposed. Decisions are taken by the market forces of demand and supply. Like in democracy, the one who wins more votes is forming the government. Similarly, in the demand and supply forces, whenever demand becomes stronger than supply, price goes up. Whenever supply becomes stronger than demand, maybe the price falls. So this way, so the decisions are maneuvered, decisions are articulated by the collective aggregated forces of demand and supply, not by one individual. Nobody comes and tells you, hey, tomorrow the price of milk will be this much. No, nobody tells it. It is decided by the market forces of demand and supply. Like, ideally, nobody should tell you who to vote for. You decide it. Okay? So that way, the capitalism / free market economy and democracy are very much mirror image of each other. It's very hard to conceive free market economy in a dictatorship, and it's very difficult to perceive controlled economy in a democracy. So they are quite complementary and supplementary to each other. And remember that in the good old days, economics and politics were not separated. I think I told you that one of the oldest classic institute of economics is London School of Economics and Political Science, which basically means it's both politics and economics. Okay, so they were never separated, but now, of course, they're separated for the good reasons. The law of demand is the main backbone of this from the demand side. It says that the quantity of a good demanded per period of time will fall as the price rises and will rise as the price falls. Other things being equal, ceteris paribus. The ceteris paribus is a very important thing. All else being equal, there is an inverse relationship between price and demand. Price and demand. The price goes up, demand goes down. The price goes down, demand goes up, ceteris paribus, all else being equal. I don't know if I have ever asked you to use this caution or not. We always say that there is some relationship between price and demand. We never say demand and price. We always say the price and demand, but not demand and price. See this way. I don't know whether I discussed with you or not. When the price goes up, demand goes. When the price goes down, demand goes up. Now see the opposite. If demand goes up, the price goes. And when the demand goes down, the price goes. So then it's not inverse relationship. So it's very important you to know that who's causing the ignition. So when I say the law of demand, never say demand and price, always say price and demand. So all else being equal, other things being equal, ceteris paribus, there is an inverse relationship between price and demand, which implies as the price goes up, demand goes down, and as the price goes down, demand goes up. For the normal goods, the usual, not very exceptional goods, the relationship is negative. The things are negative, okay? The normal goods is very important. What do you mean by normal goods? Why I had to write this phrase, normal goods? Do we have the abnormal goods? Like abnormal people? Do we have the supernormal goods like supernormal people? Do we have subnormal goods like subnormal people? Why? What made me write this phrase normal? Normal, usual, which normally people buy. Food, clothing, shelter. Abnormal goods, which are not mass products, but the class products. And the class products are class products because they are very expensive. Otherwise, everybody can buy them. You see my point? When you buy some painting in the auction, and the price starts from some 6 figure to 7 figures and 8 figures, is it a normal good? If that painting is cheaper, nobody would buy it. People buy it because it is expensive, so that you can show off, you can flaunt your possession. If that painting is so cheaper, then it's not something you feel proud of. Of course, you can say that, hey, I'm art lover, I like the appreciation. But I mean, how many people, how the rich people who have very expensive paintings, do they know anything about art? I have serious doubts. So they have it because the price is very high. So then they're not normal goods. So in case of such non-normal goods, more the price, more should be demand. Then the law of, that is why you have to distinguish between the normal goods and the non-normal goods. So that is what compelled me to write the phrase normal goods. Why do it happens that there is an inverse relationship between price and demand? The first one is the income effect. When the price rises, your purchasing power diminishes. Do you agree? You have 100 euros wage a week, and let's say that the average price of which you buy in your kitchen item is 5 euros. It means that you can only buy 20 units in a week, not more than that. Does it make sense? But if the price jumps from 5 to 8, it means you can only buy 12.5 units. Why you buy less? Do you need less? No, you need more. You still need same, but you cannot buy it because your income, not the nominal income, you still have 100 euros as cash on weekly basis. So your nominal income is still the same, but your real income, I think we discussed about the real income and the nominal income. The real income is the basis of your purchasing power. Your purchasing power does not depend upon the nominal income. It depends on the real income. And whenever the price goes up, your real income goes down, and thus you are not able to continue the living standards that you are accustomed of. On the contrary, your weekly wage is 5 euros, is 100 euros, and the average price you pay for your grocery is 5 euros, and you are able to buy 20 units, and now the price goes down to 4. It means that your capacity is now grown from 20 units to 25 units, even though your nominal income is still the same. But with the same nominal income, your real income has increased more than it used to be before. Okay. The second, and by the way, there's an article from BBC, which I think that you should, rather you must go through it. It's a very interesting article. It talks about your income effect. The second reason why the law, this law of demand works is the substitution effect. Substitution. The goods have substitutes. Do you agree? They may not be perfect substitutes, but they have some kind of comparable, some working substitute. Tea and coffee could be a good example. I don't know whether you like tea or coffee or both. I like both. When I wake up in the morning, of course I prefer tea, but I'm fine with coffee as well. No big deal. So tea and coffee could be substitutes. When the price of tea increases, the demand for coffee increases because the demand for tea is going down. And people can substitute tea with coffee. Does it make sense? Is it a good example? Or should I find some better example? Because the goods are substitute. You may find substitutes. So it could be possible that so the substitution effect also apply. You always like to buy the goods which are more of the quantity, which is cheaper than, the one more expensive. And again, to support this argument, I have an article here. Again, it's taken from BBC. You can understand that how this why people substitute this for that you can go through it. I would recommend you that you should at least have a cursory look at both articles. We use the phrase demand schedule and demand curve. By schedule, we mean the tabular presentation of the behavior of consumers. And graph is, of course, graph. The curve is a graphical representation, right? Pictorial, graphical. Schedule is a tabular in a form of a table. Imagine we have a society where we have only Kate and Simon. Life would have been very easy if there was only Kate and Simon, right? So let's imagine that we have a society in which we have two individuals. Then there are different combinations, your price level, and you can see that the price is increasing from 20 pence to 100 pence, which means £1, basically per kilo. And you can see that Kate's demand is going down, but Kate is demanding different quantities. Maybe Kate is more price sensitive. When the price is low, she buys more. On the other hand, at the same price, Simon is buying 16. You see my point? Because different people might have different attitude towards the price. So this is the demand schedule of Kate. This is the demand schedule of Simon. And when you combine, it becomes, what is the word we use? Aggregated demand. Remember the phrase we used in the morning, aggregated, in which all the individuals, everybody is summed up. So it means that when the price is 20 pence, Kate is buying 28 and Simon is buying 16. And then the total market demand could be 700. Sorry, I'm wrong to say. There are many people. So Kate, Simon, Jack, Alina, there is Tatiana, everybody's there. And all of them, when added, it makes 700 kilos altogether. This is the market demand. So it's not just two-person society, it's multiple persons. And altogether it makes 700. But one thing you should find out, that whether it's individual, does it show? Whether it's individual Cage or Simon or anybody else or the market, one common characteristic is that whenever the price is increasing, demand is falling for the normal goods. When you show this pattern, when you show this consumer's behavior in a form of a table, then it's called schedule, individual, or market. And when you show it graphically, then it's a graphical curve. So here we plot it, and you can see that when the price is very high, 100, the demand is 100. And as the price goes down up to 20 pence, the demand becomes 700 here. So this shows an inverse relationship. So what we say, ceteris paribus, there is an inverse relationship between price and demand, which implies that more quantity is demanded when the price is low, and less quantity is demanded when price is more. And it is because there is an income effect and there is substitution effect. By the way, Alfred Marshall, a very famous neoclassical economist, is the one who made a lot of contribution to this, what is called it, this law of demand. Determinants of demand of a good X something. Price of X, of course. Yeah, the price make a big impact on the demand. I explained it already, right? Taste. Does taste have an impact on the demand? Something is of your taste, you demand more, regardless of the price. The price is same in the market. Why some people are buying it more and some people are buying it less? Same price, but why some people are buying it more? Because it fits in their taste. And the other person doesn't like it, so they don't buy it, or they buy it less. Does it make sense? The second determinant is the number and the price of substitute goods. Demand for coffee will not fall much, even when the price of coffee is increasing, if there is an absence of tea. Does it make sense? I repeat, the demand for coffee will not fall so much, even when the price of coffee is increasing, if the tea is not available or less available. But there'll be more response, there'll be more reaction of consumers if the tea is available. So the price, when the price of coffee increases, demand for coffee will fall more relatively when there is availability of tea. So when the substitutes are available, the reaction of the demand is different. Okay? For many people, tea or coffee, they have to start their day. I would even say to this extent that the demand for tea, demand for coffee will not be affected at all, even if the price increases, if tea is absolutely missing and people have no choice. Okay, tea can still be okay. Think about food. Think about shelter. So these are the things which we cannot. But if the substitute is available, then the demand would be reacting differently. So in the more advanced countries, in the more developed countries, we expect there'll be more substitutes so that no single seller can, tamper the prices. The number and price of complementary goods. What is complementary goods? Which are demanded jointly together. Like, for example, when you buy a car, obviously you will be buying more gasoline as well, because otherwise the car will not work, or electric, whatever. So when you buy something, then by default, you have to buy something else. The market for gasoline can go down if the price of car increases, even though the price of gasoline has not increased. But why do people need gasoline if they don't have cars? You know, doesn't make sense. So therefore, the price and the number and the price of substitutes are you buy only one, either this or that. Complement is you buy this and that. When there is a more demand of houses, there'll be more demand for electricity also. Because when you buy new houses that are built, people are buying new houses, obviously they need electricity, they need water, they need electrical goods. They need services of masons and carpenters and those, because you have to you will be making carpeting or, those wallpapers and stuff like that. So automatically, those demands are increased, right? Now, when many of you chose to come to Finland to study, your main purpose was to study. You paid the fee. Guess what happened? That also affected the housing market in Finland. Because after all, you need to live. That also affected the prices of the food items. Because after all, you will be eating. Of course, it's nice that you bring some lot of tasty food from Sri Lanka. But how long you can eat that? Yeah. Income. When your income goes up, what happened to demand? When you become richer, then at a given price, even if the price doesn't change, most likely you'll be consuming more. So demand will increase. And when the income goes down, then even if the price has fallen, you still demand less because you don't have the buying capacity. Distribution of income. If the two societies and people are either rich or poor, in the other society, in the other country, the income is comparatively more evenly distributed and the middle income class is very dominant in the society. In which society you think demand will be more? Society X, people are either very rich or very poor. Middle class is almost missing. Society Y, the gap between rich and poor is not very wide and the middle income class is very common. Where do you expect the demand to be more? And why? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. There is a society and there are very rich people, imagine. Rich people are so rich that they don't care about the price increase. If they want to buy a car, even if the price goes up from 33,000 euros to 35,000, if they need it, if they want to buy it, they will buy it. So it means the price is not affecting the demand much. On the other hand, even if you give them incentive by reducing the price, it doesn't really attract them. On the other hand, the poor people, even if you reduce the price of a car from 35,000 to 25,000, it's still beyond their reach. So there's one group of society which is not discouraged when the price goes up. And there's also in the same society, there's one more group of people, they will not buy more even if you motivate them by reducing the price. So the price impact, the way people are reacting to the price change is very less if you are having a society where the gap between rich and poor is very wide. On the other hand, if a society is having more middle income people, They are the one who are very sensitive to the price. They will go for shopping. They will not buy it first. They will have the window shopping. They will walk around 10 shops. Then they will make a list, prices. And then, you know what? For this thing, this shop is the best. For that thing, that shop is the best. Because the middle income people are the most price sensitive people. Why all the multinational companies are moving to the developing countries? Any idea? Why India, China, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Vietnam, why are these hot destinations for the foreign investors? Among other things, one common factor is that the middle incomes, the middle class of these countries has suddenly emerged. And they are the one whom these multinational companies really like, really want. They are the people who will buy goods from them. So those countries, those societies where the middle income people, in other words, the distribution of income is not so uneven. When you have a middle income, when you have a larger middle class in a country, it basically shows that the gap between rich and poor are there, of course, but not so drastic. The absence of middle class basically shows that the income is very unevenly distributed. Rich are very rich and the poor are very poor. Okay. Expectations of the future prices. If you expect the prices to rise in the future, what will happen? The present demand will already increase, even though the price have not fallen. But because you're afraid of prices rising in the future, what do you start? You start stocking them already. You see the COVID days, the stores used to be, they were so bad, so discouraging that you go in the store and you find that all the shelves are empty. Okay, because people were buying the panic shopping, panic buying, because they had the idea that maybe the goods will not be available by the evening, or maybe the price will go up. So just go and buy it, just stock it. So when you have this type of strange expectations, that also affect the prices now. Population, more demand or less demand? More demand. The countries which are more populous, all these countries which I told you before, I named them. One common characteristic is that they're quite populous countries. The density of population is quite high. So it means there's more likelihood that people would buy goods from the companies. Technology. More technological developments takes place, more demand increase. There'll be many products. I mean, you guys buy many products which people of my generation were not even aware, because they were not exist. Those products were not even existing at that. So there is always, when with the generation, there's a technological development, there's more awareness, new demands are created, then people buy them more. Okay, so technology makes a big impact on what people buy. Movements and shifts in demand curve. Please see that in this section, we studied 9 factors, and the limit is, I left many dots because it could be millions of reasons. Demand for X, the price of X, this is an exception. Now please note down that when I'm speaking, keep an eye on the cursor. When the demand of a product rises or falls because of its price, then this is called movement along the demand curve. When the price falls, demand rises. When the price rises, demand falls. But when the demand rises, not because of the fall in the price, but because of the other factors. Your income has increased, technology has improved, income is evenly distributed, all other reasons from 0.2 to 0.9, then there's a shift in the demand. Look, when your income increases, you start consuming from you used to buy OQ0, but now you start buying OQ1 because your income has increased, even though the price has not fallen. So what happened? When the change is ignited, not by the price of the commodity, but by the other factors, then there is a shift in the demand curve. But when the change in your consumption pattern is only ignited by the price of the product in question, then there is a movement along the demand curve. So here on the blue line, demand rises, demand falls purely because of the price of it. But when the shift in demand curve takes place, when you move away from blue line to the red line, then the price of the commodity is not responsible. It's the other factors. I can say the other factors. When you move from blue line to red line, it is because people start liking it now. It is because the number and the goods substitutes are available now. It is because the income has increased. It is because the middle income class of people has emerged. It is because the future price expectations are upwards. It is because population has increased. It is because technology has improved. But this doesn't change. This is constant. When this happened at all, 0.2 to 0.9, they are shifting, they are changing, but 0.1 is constant, then you will experience that the demand curve has moved, shifted from the blue line to the red line or red line to the blue line. It can be opposite also. Okay, but when the demand is changing just because of its price, then you remain at the same curve. Yeah. So this is called the movement along demand curve and shift in the demand. Does it make sense? Supply schedule. Similarly, the supply schedule is there. The tabular presentation is called schedule, and the pictorial is called curve. The price of potatoes is increasing. There's a farmer X. Obviously, he'll be supplying more. Can I ask you why it happened that when the price, think like a supplier, think like a seller now. When the price is increasing, why do you supply more? I can understand from a consumer point of view that when the price goes up, you can't afford to buy it, so the demand goes down. But think like a supplier. Why do suppliers supply more when the price is increasing? What is the underlying mindset? Why do you supply more when the price is increasing? That's my question to you. Yeah. Think more. You have more profits. When the price increases, you get more profits. How? When the price increases, your total revenue increases. Do you believe it? When the price is more in the market, your revenue increases. You are selling furniture, okay? Every day, you sell 100 chairs. And imagine that the price per chair is 10 euros. So what is your revenue? 1,000. But now the price moved from 10 to 15. Now your revenue is 1,500. But your cost is still the constant. Only the price of chair in the market has increased. The price of wood, the price of chemicals, the price of those paints and all that stuff is still same. So when the price in the market is increased, Your revenue is increasing given the constant cost. And how do you find the profit? The profit is the gap between total revenue and total cost. Total revenue is increased. The total cost is constant. Thus, the gap, which is profit, has increased. And rise in the profit is a big incentive for the seller to sell more. Because at a higher prices, the seller's profit is increasing. Because the gap between revenue and cost is increasing. Of course, you can counter argue with me that, Shab, is it forever? No, it's not forever. Because at some stage, when the prices increase, when the prices of chair increase, at some stage, the price of wood will also increase because there's a shortage of wood. The labor wage will also increase because there'll be shortage of furniture making labor. There'll be price increase of paints and the chemicals also, because now more and more furniture making companies are using paint and those varnish and all that stuff. Of course, that will happen, but at some stage, not before a certain period. So up to some period, with the increase in the prices, the seller, suppliers, producers, manufacturers, they will experience a rise in their profit. And that is a big incentive for them to supply. Therefore, as the price increases, the supply is increasing. Okay, does it make sense? One important thing, which I haven't told you yet. When you see this price, think from the consumer's point of view, this consumer's point. OP, the price on this demand curve is the maximum price. I quote, the price on each demand curve is the maximum. I repeat, the maximum price which a consumer is willing to pay. The price on the supply curve is the minimum price. I repeat, the minimum price which a seller must get. So consumer is paying the price. So for him, he or she would pay the maximum price, not more than that. But from the seller's point of view, this is the minimum price. This is just covering their cost and a little bit of margin. Yeah. So for them, each price on this supply curve is the minimum price which they must receive, because it's a minimum price. On the contrary, the price on the demand curve is the maximum price which a consumer is willing to pay. So remember that when you talk about the price, the buying price, it is the maximum price. And when you say the selling price, it is the minimum price. So think like that. Again, these are the factors. Like you have the determinants of demand, you also have the determinants of supply. Obviously, when the price of good increases, you supply more. When the cost of production increase, what happens then? When the cost of production increases, you supply less, don't you? When the cost of production increases, you supply less. Remember stagflation before lunch? The cost increases, the supply curve moves up, which basically means that you produce less than before. Change in technology, when there is a change in technology, if the technology is for the betterment, then the production increases. If technology makes your product redundant, then your supply will decrease. When I was a child, we used to have the black and white TV, those tellies, because there was no colored televisions in India at that time. But nobody makes them now. Why? Because technology, the color TV, the smart TV, the technology is so much developed that who will buy those black and white TV? So technology can make many products, redundant, obsolete, out of fashion, out of demand. the organizational changes. Of course, if there are better leadership of the company, the board of directors, that also have an impact on the supply. The government's policy, subsidies and taxes, there are some products which the state want to encourage people to buy from you. Then the state would give subsidies on those products, which means you can reduce the price and the state pays you the compensation. On the other hand, the state doesn't want certain goods to be consumed, like smoking, like cigarettes. So what state does? It increases the taxes so that the price increases and maybe people are discouraged from buying them. Profitability of goods in joint supply. What is joint supply? Have you heard about joint supply? Joint supply. Something jointly supplied. When the price of wheat, you know the wheat, the farmers grow wheat. When the price of wheat increases, why farmer is encouraged to produce more wheat? Because by producing more wheat, by default, he would produce more husk. You know the husk? Husk is the shell of wheat. And you can even sell the husk as a cattle feed to those people who are having cows and buffaloes. Are you getting me? But when you produce wheat, by default, you produce the husk as well. When you produce sugarcane, what happens? You also produce the molasses. When you make sugar out of sugarcane, there is something left at the bottom, and that is purchased by those people who make confectionery, the sweets. So even that waste is bought by somebody. So what I'm not going too much into technical details, but there are some products which are jointly supplied. And when the price increases, you not only sell the main product, but also the product which by default is supplied more. I think these are the more examples available in the agricultural sector. You don't have jointly supplied goods, maybe in industries, very few, but most of the examples could be found in the agricultural sector. Yeah. Random shocks, yeah, that can also change supply. If you see that the market is very optimistic, the future is very bright, you produce more, supply more, and when you find that the market is not very promising, things can go wrong, the political change can be negative, then you supply less at the, yeah. And likewise, that's quite straightforward. Supply curve, again, the blue supply curve, if the supply is increasing only because of the change in the price, then this is called movement along the supply curve. But when there is some other factors coming in the picture, technology is coming in the picture, the state's policy is coming in the picture, then if it is encouraged, then it increases. If it is discouraged, then it's decreased. So there can be shift along, there can be movement along the supply curve, and there can be shift in the supply curve as well. Equilibrium is established. Now you see this demand curve, supply curve. Demand curve, look, A is the price. A is the minimum price which a supplier must get if he or she is selling 100 units. E is the maximum price which a consumer would pay if he or she is buying 100 units. You see my point? And you can see that as the price decreases, The demand of the consumers is increasing. And as the price increasing, the supply, the offer to supply products by supplier is increasing. And then there is equilibrium. Equilibrium is a state of bliss, is a state of rest. Rest means now there's no movement needed. We are fine. When you say that, now we have done all the adjustment shifting, we are fine. Now it's fine. It means you're talking about equilibrium. And this, if you notice, unlike J.M. Keynes, Lord Keynes, the decision is not imposed by anybody on you. It is a market's own decision. Okay? And what do we say? It's called invisible hand. I tell you what invisible hand means here. This is the equilibrium point. And the price is 60 pence per kilo. Just imagine. The price rises from 60 to 80. There's some disturbance, there's some shock. The market is disturbed. The price goes up to 80. Guess what happens? When the price rises from 60 pence to 80 pence, demand would be this much. See the cursor? And supply would be this much. Demand would be less because more price, less demand. But supply would be more because more price means more supply. It means there's more offer to supply than people are demanding. It means goods are in surplus. The goods are in surplus. And how do you absorb surplus? If you have something surplus, how you can absorb it? You can only absorb it by lowering the price. Haven't you seen some grand sale offered by the companies? Because they have some surplus of products. Nobody's buying them. What do they do then to make them get rid of surplus stock? What do? They reduce price. So you start reducing the price until you reach the equilibrium again. Did the Ministry of Finance came to you to do it? This is an instinctive action. This is intuitive action. This you decided by yourself. Nobody forced you to cut down the price. So there is an invisible hand, the market mechanism, the price mechanism, which came into action and asked you to cut down the price. The ministry didn't come to you. Nobody asked you to do it. It's your voluntary action. On the other hand, the equilibrium is 60 pence, but the price somehow went down to 40 pence. When the price goes down, supplier is angry, so he supplies less, but consumer is very happy. Demand is this much. When demand is this much, supply is this much, there's a shortage in the economy. There's a shortage in the market. What happens when there's a shortage? The price starts increasing upwards till it reaches the equilibrium. What does it mean? It means that the market mechanism, the price mechanism can if there's a disequilibrium, this can be corrected by self-adjusted mechanism. And who does it? The invisible hand of market mechanism. And here we talk about which economist? Not J.M. Keynes, but Adam Smith, who says that if there is a disequilibrium, it will be self-corrected by the market mechanism or by the by the price mechanism. But when you have to interject, when you have to interfere, that is called that is the ideology of the J.M. Keynes. So J.M. Keynes doesn't like this picture, but Adam Smith does like it. Okay, does it make sense? Of course, there can be some disturbances. It could be that demand was D1, supply was S. This was the equilibrium price, equilibrium output. And then there is a change in the demand curve, the shift in demand curve from D1 to D2. People have become richer. There's more equal distribution in society. Technology has improved and all that stuff. People have become well off. They can afford to buy at higher price. There's more output, but the prices have also increased. Remember, we saw this picture in the morning. Demand pull inflation. On the other hand, demand is D, supply is S1, the cost has increased. Now the minimum price should not be this much because you can't cover your cost. Now the minimum price should be this much. Remember, when you see from the supplier's point of view, you think from the minimum point. When the cost of production increases, your minimum expectation price goes up. It means what? It means that now the new equilibrium is here. The price is more, but guess what happened? Output has gone down. And what do we call it? Cost push inflation. Demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. Demand pull inflation is comparatively benign, comparatively humane than the cost push inflation. But again, I warned you in the morning that if you let it go, then it doesn't take ages before the demand pull become cost push. So demand pull inflation can be a good warning signal. So if the politicians, bureaucrats don't decode it, then they will be making a big mistake in the future. And this way you can see that there can be all type of movements. There can be movements in demand, there can be movements in supply, there can be movements in demand and supply both. And the equilibrium is always when the demand and supply match. Okay? Yeah. Now this is very interesting. We have a system. Remember one thing. If we live in a country, or if we live in a society where all the prices are controlled by the state, then this picture, demand curve and supply curve, doesn't exist. Somebody tells you, hey, the price is this much. You buy it or don't buy it. It's up to you. These are the controlled economies. Similarly, if there is a absolutely free market mechanism, then everything is decided by demand curve and supply curve, and no such straight line exists. Like you have seen in the previous pictures, we are talking here about pure capitalism. Every decision is taken by demand curve and supply curve. Nobody's making any, no line comes in between. But here the line comes. Here the line comes here. The first line is called minimum price. It's a bit ironical that the minimum price and the maximum price, the minimum is above and the maximum is below. I'll tell you why. Demand and supply. This time, I change the example, not furniture, but demand and supply of bread. Bread is an essential product. Do you agree? We can live without a very posh chair, no problem. We can sit on the floor if the need be. But the bread is something that we all eat, rich, poor, whosoever. If the state does not have any impact on the price of bread, then the market forces can move so abruptly that the price of bread can go very high. Either demand increases exceptionally high or supply shrinks exceptionally to the left. Either way, the price of bread would be very high. When the price of bread goes high, the poor income people, they would be the one who would be badly affected. In a welfare country, the role of the state is not to let the poor people suffer. So what state does? State says, you know what? we fix a line. Up to this line, the market forces can play whatever role they want. But beyond this line, if the price of bread goes beyond, okay, if this is 1.60, okay, up to 1.60 euros, below is good for the consumer. But if you want to raise the price from 1.60, you can. But if the price touches 2.20 euros, we will come in the picture. And we will force Prisma, Lidl, whosoever, not to increase the price at all. Because if the price goes beyond 2.20 euros, then the poor people would be really, really, really harmed. That is the thinking of the state. So guess what? The state has put a cap on the price. That no price would rise beyond 2.20 euros. So when the state is going to protect the rights of the consumers, then state can fix an upper price beyond which you cannot just increase the price because of the demand and supply intersections. No. You have to inform the state. You remember that when this corona thing came, the state was quite active in the retail sector. So they were making sure that, okay, up to some products, even if price goes up, they're not essential products, they're non-essential products, but those which are like the bread, sugar, eggs, milk, then state was quite active that they should not go beyond a certain level. Does make sense? On the other hand, state is not only concerned about the consumer, the state, there's one important stakeholder the state is also concerned about, that is a seller. Sellers. Remember, every seller is not a multinational company. The sellers, the producers, the manufacturers could be the poor farmer as well. Some small, tiny local shop as well. You can't call them truly bourgeois or like truly, those, what is the word, capitalist. No. They are the poor farmers. They are the small scale manufacturers. We have to take care of their interest as well. In fact, many of these consumers, the poor consumers, when you see from their livelihood, they would fall in this category as well. So state, what it does, there's one more type of problem. If you leave the decisions to be taken by the demand and supply curve, then either supply has increased so much or demand has fallen so much that the price can go really, really, really down. And when the price goes down, these little companies, these small farmers, they can suffer a lot. It means that the state needs to protect these people from the falling prices. Like the state is protecting consumers from the rising prices, the state is also protecting the producers from the falling price. You see my point? Therefore, the state is fixing a ceiling price, a floor price. This is a cap price. This is a floor price. It means that no price of corn, no price of milk, no price of butter, no price of potatoes should fall below this point. If it is left to the market forces, the price can become even zero. But the problem is that in this situation, these poor farmers, they would suffer a lot. So therefore, the state is careful that, if you allow me, if I quickly stop sharing it and the picture, in a purely capitalist country, this is demand, this is supply. Let the price go very high, who cares? Let the price go very low, who cares? But we know that the modern day states are also the welfare states. Even in the US, in the so-called capitalistic country, there is a subsidy to the food. There are food vouchers. which poor income people can, lower income people can get. So even in those so-called purely capitalistic countries, the state is very, having some welfare orientation. Similarly, the healthcare, even in like Obama's healthcare plan has been very famous, very much in the news in the past. So even what I'm telling you is that in the very capitalistic countries, also some element of welfare is very visible. And now in a country like Finland, in the Nordic countries, Scandinavian countries, which are based on the model of welfare, this cannot be allowed to happen. Because if the price keeps rising, either by more demand or by shortage of supply, it will harm the consumers. But if the price is falling very low, either by low demand or too much supply, it will harm the sellers. So therefore, what we do, we use a phrase called manage. We call it managed capitalism, which means that there's an upper price, which is called minimum price. Oh, sorry, was it maximum price? Was it maximum or minimum? Sorry, the max price. Is it a minimum price? The minimum price, yeah. And then there's a lower price. And in between, the demand curve and supply curve can play up to what they want. Within this range, within this band, the free market mechanism can work, no problem. But if the free market mechanism is touching this line, then it can harm the consumers. But if the free market mechanism is touching this line, the below line, then this can affect the sellers. That is where the buck stops. That is where the state comes into action. And this is called managed capitalism, basically. The managed price mechanism, the market mechanism. Within this range, no problem. Please play demand supply. Nobody tells you anything. But beyond this and below this, the state would interfere. Here, the state wants to protect consumers. And here, the state wants to protect the producers or sellers, supplier, whatever you call it. One last thing about this upper and the lower band is not for every product. Which example I've been giving you so far? Bread, milk, potatoes. This will not be applicable to Ferrari or BMW or some very expensive car or some posh computer system, software system. No. Let it be whatever happens, no problem. Shoes, expensive shoes, luxury goods. No, not at all. This maximum and the minimum ceiling is only valid for the goods which are the bare minimum. What do we call them? The bare necessities. Basically, they touch your food, clothing, and shelter needs. If you want to buy some product of Gucci, then there's no offer price. Nobody will be protesting in the street. Oh my gosh, we have lost our lives. Gucci products have become expensive. Come on, who told you? Who asked you? Will you die without it? Well, of course, one can die without eating food. So we need to decide which products we are talking about. So this upper and the lower band is not across the board. This is basically meant for the essential goods: food, shelter, clothing, those things, those services which can affect your life and dignity. Only that thing is taken into consideration. Does it make sense? Right? Yes or no? All good? You understand it? Very good. Otherwise, for all other products, the price is decided by the market forces of demand and supply. So nothing big. All right. Two articles you should read. The minimum price and the maximum price. Yeah. And one last thing is that if you want to, I think this picture I've shown you before. I showed you last time that if you want to see a real life example of the market forces, then the stock markets are the best examples. Because here, the price of the stock can go up and down any second. And basically, every point of this blue line is representing a demand curve and a supply curve. So you can draw millions of demand curves and supply curves here. Okay, so the stock market is a classic example of the price mechanism. Then you can see a theory, and you read a theory, demand curve, the price mechanism, and you can see in the real life instantly as well. Okay, so that is something you can study. That's it. Basically, we are done with the syllabus. Congratulations.